The toxic trap in the personal development industry that no one warns you about is as follows, and it's holding you back, so listen up. Before I started my training to become a clinical psychologist, before I founded Tools from Therapy to help people with their personal development journeys, I used to consume a lot of personal development information myself. This was before I was a psychologist, before I had any expertise or any real credible knowledge. So I was totally absorbed in this world of watching personal development videos and motivational speakers. I used to watch people like Les Brown and the motivational speaker E.T. before the gym. It would get me amped up. It would get me excited. And it wasn't just for gym that it would help. It would help me stay focused on my long-term goals in my career. It would help me study. It would help me eat clean. All of these self-improvement goals. It would help me with that. So I'd be listening to these videos. I'd get supercharged, and they'd speak about winning and mindset and how you've got to grind and stay disciplined and all these sorts of things. So I used to think that it was amazing, and I'd be listening to these videos, I'd be reading the books, I would be listening to the podcasts. And so, yeah, everything was good. Until I started my clinical psychology training. And then I realized that there was a bit of a trap in this way of trying to go about your personal development. And it was something I didn't realize at the time when I was studying my undergraduate degree and when I was in high school. It's something I didn't realize. It was a trap that I was finding myself in. And after looking back retrospectively, I realized that when I was watching these videos, I would get charged up for the moment, and then I'd have this feeling of, okay, I'm going to turn my life around. I'm going to get everything in order and I'll become a new person. And I'd feel very motivated by that idea of being someone totally different. I'd be very, very motivated by that image. And then I'd try to pursue that. But then I would slowly start to lose a bit of energy. I'd maybe miss a day here or there, or I'd feel, wow, I've been disciplined for so long. I deserve a reward, right? So I'd eat something that's probably a bit unhealthy and I'd fall off the wagon. But then I'd feel really bad about that. I'd start beating myself up, feel very self-critical, think, am I going to ever get to my goals? I'd even start to feel a bit hopeless. And then my energy would fizzle out. I'd fall into this haze of just doing what everyone else is doing and not really focusing on myself or my goals. And then one day I'd listen to a video again by a motivational speaker or a personal development person, and then I'd get that sudden burst of energy again. And then I'd be very idealistic in how I want to solve my life and solve my problems, and then I would be totally back on the horse. But again, I would fizzle out, and then I'd start to lose hope, and then I'd beat myself up, and then I'd feel like I really need to get my life together, and then I'd try again. But I was stuck in the cycle. Lots of energy, making mistakes, being harsh on myself, thinking I really need to get my life in order, and then trying really hard to get my life in order. But in the moment, I didn't realize that this was a cycle that was repeating itself. It kind of just felt like I was trying to get it right, and then each time I had failed, so I just got to try harder next time, not realizing that each part of this, you could call it spiral, was feeding into each other. I didn't realize that at the time. It wasn't until I got into masters for clinical psychology, and then I had to get my own therapist. Because in psychology, you are recommended to get your own therapist, because then you can get an idea of what it's like to be in the seat, what it's like to be on the other end, the client or the patient. So it's a really good idea to get your own therapist. And so I got my own therapist a bit reluctantly, because I thought, you know what, I'm not really like these other people in my class. I'm into personal development and self-improvement, so I'm further along. I'm interested in this stuff anyways. Let me just do it as a formality and because it's recommended as part of the program. But when I got to therapy, I realized that there were lots of deeper underlying psychological skills, things going on that were just below the surface that I had no idea of. I started to realize that I actually had a very, very low sense of self-worth, that I felt that if I weren't being perfect, that things weren't going to work out for me. I didn't realize that I was thinking in extremes. I was thinking in black and white. Either I have to be amazing and perfect at everything I'm doing, or I'm a total failure and I'm unworthy. But I had that underlying feeling of I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough as I am. I'm not something that's acceptable. I'm maybe even disgusting in some way. and I need to totally transform myself, and I need to totally change to become someone of worth. But the whole time that I was into personal development and into self-improvement, I had no idea that was going on. It was totally unconscious. The only thing I would feel is that self-criticism, but I didn't think it was a problem. I thought self-criticism was a healthy fuel source to beat me into shape. But what I didn't realize was that the same self-criticism that I was using to fuel myself to change was the same self-criticism that was making me feel hopeless about who I am, making me feel that I cannot change. It was that same self-criticism that led to hopelessness, to depression, to anxiety, to all of these negative emotions that were getting in the way of me changing. But I held on to it. I held on to that self-criticism because that's what I knew. I knew that harshness and that punitiveness, being very hard on myself, beating myself up with a stick. Come on, you got to change now, Nevern. You can't be like this forever. You can't be pathetic. You can't be a loser. You can't be really harsh. Basically, internal bullying. When I got to therapy, I realized how toxic that was. And herein lies the toxic trap of the personal development industry. A lot of people in the personal development industry, they encourage you to use self-criticism, to use self-hate as your basis for transformation. And what I want to tell you as a psychologist is that that is not healthy, and that very self-criticism is what is going to get in the way of you healing and of you growing and becoming a better person. Because if you build your personal development on the foundation of hating yourself, it is unstable, it is unsustainable, it is rocky, it is shaky, and it's also an unpleasant journey, right? Because you're no longer just engaging in personal development for the love of it, because it's interesting, because you want to do it, because it's joyous, because it's exciting, because it's inspiring. No, none of that. You're doing it because you hate who you are. You're doing it because you refuse to accept where you're at. You're doing it because you can't have empathy with yourself to realize that the way you are right now, that there's a reason for that. You are the way you are right now because of lots of things that were outside of your control. The genes that you were given. You didn't choose your parents. You didn't choose your genetics. A lot of your biology, you didn't choose. A lot of your environments, you didn't choose. The people who happened to be around you that became your friends, the people who were around you in your family that were shaping your young, developing mind, you did not have a lot of say in all of those things. But you refuse to see that. You refuse to accept that and to understand that I am the product of a lot of nature and nurture. I am the product of a lot of biology and environment and the people who happen to be around me. You don't take any of that into account, but instead you beat yourself up for who you are. So you're starting from a place of self-criticism and self-hate instead of self-love. And what I want to tell you is that the way out of this trap, the way out of this toxic trap of feeling self-critical and being stuck in that self-criticism is self-compassion. It's empathy for yourself, it's kindness, it's support for yourself. I'm not saying that self-acceptance means you shouldn't try to change. I'm saying that not accepting yourself is what's leading to you not changing, because you're so hard on yourself. You need to come back down to earth and realize that you are the way you are for specific reasons, and that while a lot of that stuff was out of your control, it's now your responsibility to move forward, but not out of overcompensation. Because once you start overcompensating for who you are, once you start feeling like you need to overcompensate with your behaviors and your achievements and your accolades and your friend groups and your dressing and your whatever else, once you start feeling that you have to overcompensate for something about you that you're not happy with, then you're building your personal development on shaky grounds. Because as soon as that little bubble is popped, that little bubble of perfection that you're trying to build, that little bubble of perfection that you're trying to be, as soon as there's a bit of a kink in the armor, you're going to really be thrown off by that, because you're holding these incredibly high standards, because your self-worth is way down over here. Your self-worth is way down over here, and so you're putting up these external standards and ideas of perfection and infinite ladders that you're trying to climb that never end. So if you are stuck in that trap of building your self-improvement on a basis of self-hatred, we need to move you towards self-love. We need to understand how your personal development is going to benefit you. What's exciting about it? What do you enjoy about personal development? How could it benefit you? How could it benefit those around you? That is what we need to start to move toward. So here are a few questions that I sometimes ask my clients if they're interested in personal growth that you can ask for yourself. Number one, what is it about personal development that is capturing your interest? And more specifically, what is the intention behind that? Before you engage in anything related to personal development or self-improvement, ask yourself, what is the intention here? Is the intention to overcompensate for an ugly me? Is the intention to fix this broken version of myself? Or is the intention to improve my life? To be happy? Is the intention that I love myself and I want to take care of myself and support myself and grow and flourish and I want to do something good for the world? Because that second cluster of intentions is very different from the first. And a telltale sign as to which your intention is, are you feeling anxious about your self-improvement or are you feeling inspired? If you're feeling anxious about it, if you're feeling, oh, I'm so behind, oh, I didn't meditate today, oh, shoot, I skipped the gym. If there's that bit of anxiety that's underlying the process, it's a sign that you're running away from something rather than running towards something that is inspiring. Running towards something that is inspiring is amazing. It's like, wow, look at that thing, and I'm running toward it. That is what you want to feel. If you're feeling anxiety and if you're really harsh on yourself when you're not engaging in personal growth, that's a red flag. So that's the first question you can ask yourself. The second question that I think is just as important is by asking yourself, is there a clear purpose for this self-improvement and is there a clear end point? Because most of us, when we're engaging in personal development out of self-hatred, we don't have a clear end point. We don't have a clear goal because, again, we're not trying to move towards something. We're trying to get away from this disgusting version of ourselves that actually isn't that disgusting, but in our minds, it's disgusting. It's the worst thing, the most horrid thing on earth, and we're just trying to get away from it. But because we're trying to get away from that version of ourselves, we are actually confused about where we're running toward. Imagine it like a piece of paper. If you put a dot on a piece of paper, you could draw lines away from that dot in any direction. Up, left, right, down. You could move away from that dot in any direction. But that leaves you feeling directionless. It leaves you feeling like, what do I actually want from life? What is the self-improvement all about? What is my purpose? If you're feeling that confusion, if you don't know what you want, but you're working on self-improvement, you're trying to get somewhere desperately, but you don't even know where it is, that is a sign that you are building your self-improvement on a basis of self-hate rather than moving towards something specific. And that's what the second question is all about. What is the clear purpose for the self-improvement? And is there a clear end goal? For example, if your self-improvement is related to building muscle, is there a clear goal about how much muscle you would like to build? What percentage of muscle would you like to have, and how can you measure that? Could you go for a full body scan to measure the amount of muscle that you have, and what's the upper limit? Or is there no upper limit? Are you just trying to get buffer and bigger because you're actually kind of insecure and you're overcompensating for that? Because there's no end point. That's where you see guys really balloon and use steroids and have heart attacks at the age of 30 or 40. That's when that happens. When they're trying to fill this empty pit of lack of self-worth, that void of feeling good enough that is sitting in them. It can never be filled, and so they just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they eventually destroy themselves because of that. But someone who goes to the gym with a clear intention, they're in a much safer place because they're thinking about, oh, I need a certain amount of muscle mass because I care about myself and I want to live a long life, and I know muscle mass decreases over time. So I'm going to build this amount of muscle mass and I'm going to use this routine to get there. And I'm excited about this. It's going to be enjoyable. That is doing self-improvement out of self-love rather than self-hate. This is just my spiel on one of the most toxic traps that I see in the personal development industry. There are many, many more. And part of why I created Tools from Therapy is to help people to be able to avoid those traps, because there are many traps, many traps. A lot of information is generic, it's unscientific, it's unactionable, it's unsystematic, it's grandiose, it's overcompensatory, it lacks self-awareness. So if you are interested in engaging in personal development that is actually effective and that's based on solid clinical psychology principles, I'll leave a link in the description of this video. You can click on that link, you go to toolsfromtherapy.com, and you can look at some of the stuff that we have to offer that might be of assistance to you if you're on a personal development journey. If I don't see you there, I'll see you on YouTube. Enjoy the content. Take care. This has been Nevern. I'll see you next time.